Welcome to Let's Talk Near Death, the podcast show where we talk about life, death, and experiences somewhere in between. My name is Kirsty Salisbury, the host of the show, and I welcome you to join me as I talk to everyday people with not so everyday experiences. You may also wish to join the conversation on the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page or access additional VIP content as a premium subscriber via Patreon. For just a couple of dollars a month, you can get an early access to episodes, additional bonus content, and your chance to connect with my guests. To do so, simply visit patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. Let's talk near death.
And the next thing I know, I'm looking down like a second-story balcony at this vehicle down below with fire coming out the hood and people running out the door, until I found myself popping out into the heavens, surrounded by the stars.
And then I found myself in a place that was a light, bright aqua green, flew out into the stars, and that was all I knew for quite a while.
Today I'm joined by Edward Salisbury, and no, he's not a relation. We haven't actually found any point where we have family in common, but also Cheryl Mackin, who is Edward's wife. They are joining me together because not only are they a couple, but they are also both near-death experiencers. Edward was a hospice minister and he's a funeral director, and he's been drawn to working close with people that were dying. Like I said, he's a multiple near-death experiencer, and he's served on various associations and boards, including the IANS group, which is the International Association of Near-Death Studies. So, Edward and Cheryl, welcome to Let's Talk Near Death.
Thank you.
It'll be really interesting. I haven't actually done a podcast yet with two people on it, so I'm very interested to see how this goes. So, Edward, I'm going to start with you for this one. Can you share a little bit about your experiences, how it all began, and how your experiences came about?
The quick short story is that I, at age 26, had already been through the military, had finished college, was a golden boy in corporate America in Atlanta, Georgia, driving my Firebird convertible around town thinking I was God's gift to women. And I was at a late night football game. This was December 30th. Way back, I'll have to date myself, as a young man in 1969. As I'm driving my Firebird convertible home from a football game, I avoided traffic coming at me. My wheel hit the curb. My car smashed into a tree, but I just heard a sudden bam. And the next thing I know, I'm looking down like a second-story balcony at this vehicle down below with fire coming out the hood and people running out the door, and realizing
What door?
people running out the door of the house where this tree was. And I thought to myself, that looks like my car. As I looked closer, there was a body hanging over the steering wheel, and I realized that's my body.
Wow.
Imagine, if you can, looking at your body. And I stopped and thought to myself, if that's my body, then who am I? Understand, I had been very much into logic and physics and all kinds of, none of this woo-woo stuff. But there I was, seeing that my body was not who I am truly. And once I understood that, I found myself swept away. Like a piece of dust being sucked up a vacuum hose, I was cascaded through a carouseling, winding tunnel until I found myself popping out into the heavens, surrounded by the stars.
Wow.
Now, as a ocean sailor, I knew the stars, and I found myself traveling through the galaxies. And pretty shortly, I found a little one light getting brighter and brighter and brighter until it enveloped me. And I always struggle. The best description I can give you is a time I left a movie theater in the middle of the afternoon, and I've been dark, and I go into this bright light. Or if you've ever walked out into a bright light from a dark tunnel, I was flooded with light, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was embracing in ecstasy, like if you can imagine having spent a day trying to get out of the wet and cold, wait until you finally get home and you sink into a nice hot bathtub.
Oh, yeah.
You know that,
Uh-huh.
and Cheryl has got terms as like a euphoric ecstasy. I'll let her use her terms, but in this white light, I found myself just enchanted and enfolded and totally at peace, a peace that passes all understanding.
Mm.
Shortly, I asked myself, where am I? And I found as if I had walked into a giant dome football stadium library. Here in the U.S., we have a Library of Congress, which is 7 stories high, a rotunda, and every story has walls and walls of books. Mm. And for me, I was in this rotunda of information. Now, understand, I had been an information technology specialist, and this was accessing Google, if you would, long before there was such a concept.
Yeah.
Any question I had about the nature of reality, the reason for my being, the truth of God or sin and grace, all of that was immediately clear to me. No sooner did I form the question than the answers were there.
Mm.
And I can't tell you how long I dwelled in that space. When we reach that place, when we're able to really be at one with the cosmic consciousness, time and space seem to lose their grip on us. I satisfied every question I had. And I looked around saying, well, what else is there? And shortly, this image came manifesting in front of me. And if you've ever watched Star Trek in the transporter rooms, you see this image of lights and bubblings and people become manifest out of the ethers. Well, what manifested in front of me was that entity, that person I had prayed to as an altar boy growing up, asked for and wanting to be present with my understanding of my teacher, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And for a moment I thought, there he is, nailed to the cross. Yet as I looked closer, I realized he was dancing with his hands in the air. Mm-hmm. And then he reached out to me and invited me to come. And I paused, and next thing I found myself being hugged and embraced and loved by this presence.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how long I dwelled there, but it again was that satisfying the thirst, the fear, the doubt, and the need that I've always wanted. Looking at me like a newborn child, like my sweetie when she's happy to see me bring something that she wants, and I don't ask her to get out of bed yet. The look of love.
Yeah.
But there was also a command from him as he took his left hand and pointed up to the side and says, "He's there." I what? And I didn't want to leave his gaze, but I did want to look, and so I turned, and there was this figure sitting on a bench chair, a grandfather, godfather, Father God himself.
Wow.
There was God as I understood and could conceive.
Mm-hmm.
And he was beckoning me.
Like who?
Like Santa Claus beckons a child who's been waiting to come.
Yeah.
He was beckoning me with his right hand, patting his leg with his left hand, and says, "Come." And for the first time in this whole experience, I became self-conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Until that point, I was wrapped up with what was happening to me and appearing with me and for me. But like a little child, it was like, "You want me? Not me." In one chapter in the book they write about me, it says, "God beckoned and I backed away." I became self-conscious, doubted myself, but in a moment's time, I'm in his lap with his arm around my back, looking down at me, showering me with euphoric, ecstatic love, compassion, grace.
Mm.
Here he is, looking right into my heart, into my eyes, into my whole being, with a kind of love we all thirst for, seek after, and occasionally enjoy in fleeting moments. And as he looked down at me, I looked back and said, "I can't believe I'm here." And the answer came back, "This is where you always are.
Oh,
if you
wow.
only remember this.
Yeah.
I am always with you. You are always in my arms and in my lap." Now, I don't know, can you wrap your mind around the power of that message?
Not really.
I really did question my sanity. So I'm pausing, and God says, "Are you through?" It was a loving commandment to answer his question, "Am I through?" So I looked down at my feet, his feet, and there's like an old photograph album, if you've ever opened up an old album, and all the pictures scattered out on the floor. There, scattered at his feet, were all my memories.
Wow.
All the good ones and not so good ones. If you can recall, in the old days, you'd take a picture and you couldn't wait to see what it turns out to be like. And here I am looking down at these memories, and it's all flashing back. There I was as a 5 or 6-year-old boy stealing Coke bottles from my neighbor's garage so that I could sell them to go to a movie, and reliving that whole experience.
Wow.
By that I mean we relive all of it. I was there remembering the musty smell in the garage, the noise of the bottles clinking together as I walked and hurried back down that alley, making sure nobody saw me, reaching the end of the alley and recalling, saying, "Thank God nobody caught me." No sooner had I gone through this whole reliving, I said, "Oh no, you were there. I'm so ashamed. I'm so bad. I'm a bad boy." And the response was one that I'll never forget. He looked again with loving eyes, and he says, there are consequences for everything you do.
Yeah.
It's neither bad nor good in the greater sense. It was a lesson for you. Are you through?
Mm.
And it was an eon in moments for that to soak in to me, to recall, well, wait a minute. In Sunday school and all of the training I heard, God was vindictive or judgmental, but now you're telling me you love me anyway?
Mm.
And as I grokked that experience, embraced it, accepted it, he pointed and said, are you through? And I would turn and I'd look down, and there were things that I'd done, and lo and behold, in school I was an asthmatic fat boy who wanted to be like the bullies, and so I would tease this girl who sat in front of me and spoke with a lisp.
Mm.
And I recall leaning up to her and saying, aren't you so sorry you can speak well? Turning back to make sure the bullies in the back saw that I was cruel like they were.
Right.
And then I got to experience how I made her feel.
Yeah.
And I even witnessed her going home and torturing her cat.
Oh.
The consequences and the ripple effect of everything we say and do.
Oh, yeah.
I looked at that, I experienced that, and I turned again in God's face with this real, deep, painful shame and guilt. The response was again, there are consequences. I love you unconditionally. Are you through? And it was like, whoa. One more, I saved a girl's life in high school. I was at the beach. She was drowning. I swam out. I brought her ashore. I did CPR, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. I re-experienced her belching up in my face and gasping and coming back, and people patting me on the back saying, you did a wonderful thing.
Mm.
I remember and relived standing up and walking down the beach in the sunshine thinking, boy, I wish I could get a merit badge for this if I hadn't been playing hooky from school.
Yeah.
That all of the elements are in our recall. And I turned to God with, hey, that was a good one, wasn't it? Is that okay? With a smile and a nod, he says, there are rewards, consequences. Everything you think, say, and do is a lesson to learn. Are you through? All of our experiences, everything we're proud of and ashamed of, even to the week, 2 days before this happened, I had fudged on my expense account, thinking I get a flat salary and I work 60, 70 hours a week because I'm a nerd running computers for a corporation. I deserve more, so I fudged on my expenses so I would get more cash out of the company.
Mm.
I turned to God with this too. And the same loving nod was, there are consequences, my son. Are you through?
So what was he meaning by are you through? Was that a point where you had a choice to return or choice to stay?
Exactly. It was
Okay.
choice to. And I looked there and I said, well, there's no way I want to leave this graceful, loving presence. Let me just close this broken book of pictures. Let me just send Ma. I won't need to. You can tell Ma not to worry about me. I'm in a good place and I'm happy, and it was perfect the way it happened. No sooner did I have this emotional attachment and conceived this message I wanted my mother to have, then I came to in the hospital bed out of a coma 2 weeks later with my mother at the foot of the bed.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That was my first of 3 near-death experiences. That started a quest. There's so many of us who've had near-death experiences and others who are seeking through spiritually transformative experiences a closer, more comprehensive relationship with our Creator. Others have asked me, can I summarize what the lessons are of all of this? We are immortal beings having a temporary experience in the physical world ruled by time and space. An opportunity to experience and express the grace and the power or the consequences of misbehaving. My second near-death experience was a drowning experience that happened shortly after I had lost my first wife to a drowning in a sailboat accident.
Oh, wow.
The third experience was dying on the operating table.
Okay.
But rather than monopolize this, I'd like to do a tit for tat, maybe a task, and let my sweetie Cheryl tell you her experience.
I would love to hear it. So, Cheryl, thank you for your patience there. Actually, one question that I'm sure our listeners are wanting to know. So you met after your experiences. Did either of you have an experience while you were still together or while you were together?
No. We both had 3 experiences before we met.
Okay.
So
it was her third experience
that brought us together.
That had someone send her to me.
But the first experience was one that I don't remember at all because I was only 6 weeks old.
Okay.
And I had contracted whooping cough and lived up in the state of Minnesota, which is a very, very cold place in the winter. So I had an incident, and back then I was just put in a bathroom with a steamy bathroom. You didn't go to the hospital. It was in the 1940s, so. I had a very bad incident, but I came back from that. When a mother finds her child not breathing and she does everything, and then all of a sudden the child is breathing again, and so everything is okay. Well, I grew up a little different than my brother and sister. Just my mindset was a bit different. And when I was 19 years old, I had a fatal auto accident, and I was in college. I had 2 other passengers in the car in the back seat. I was driving. There's a lawyer here that. Anyway, it was one of Raiders' very first. It was their first project, and it was the Corvair.
Unstable automobile.
Unstable. They said it was unsafe at any speed. That was the motto for that car. And so going around a curve, the rear end, the axle lifted up, and the car flipped at 55 miles an hour, end over end, and then rolled. And my experience was when it went up in the air, I went up in the air, hit the windshield, and flew right out of the car. Not physically, I flew out into the stars, and that was all I knew for quite a while. My passengers, it was quite a miracle because the car was smushed like that. There would have been no way for anyone to have exited, and by the way, there were no seat belts back then. I had purchased them. They were in the car for my dad to connect to the automobile, but we didn't have them on for sure. They were still in the packages. And the girls somehow got out of the car without a scratch.
Wow.
Without a bruise. And in trying to get me out, they eventually pulled me out through the side window because they were afraid, of course, the car was smoking, and they were afraid it would be like the movies and it would explode.
Wow. Exactly.
So they pulled me out, and it took a while back then for the ambulance to get there. Now, part of this story is Edward and I did not know each other, but at that time, he was going to Texas A&M. I was going to the University of Texas, and I was coming home for the Thanksgiving holiday. He normally would have been driving the ambulance that picked me up.
Wow.
However, he was on reserve duty, so we didn't meet in that particular incident. It was one of those crossover times that could have happened, but it didn't. And my incident was a couple of years before he had his accident. And at that time, I sad to say, I probably wouldn't have liked him at all.
That's amazing. How did you work that out?
Because remember what he said. He was God's gift to women.
Yeah.
That would not have been my type of guy.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And what happened was when I went into the windshield, like so many people, I had the experience of going into that light, into the stars, but then with closed head trauma, many people don't remember beyond that point. And I did not. I remembered coming back into my body when the ambulance driver, back then it wasn't EMS, it was an ambulance driver, when they brought me back, I remember coming back into my body, but I didn't remember the experience. What I did remember was I was back for a purpose. I didn't know what that purpose was, but I knew I was back for a reason. And so every single thing that happened from then on, it would be, I went into the Peace Corps, and I thought, this is what God has planned for me. And then my husband and I, we had our first baby, and I thought, no, this is what it is.
I so relate to this.
And my second baby, and it was like, oh, this is all what it's for. And so every time I experienced, and miracles just kept coming.
Yeah.
I had broken my neck and had a closed head injury, and but those things, they resolved themselves. I had surgery, and that was okay.
Yeah.
I didn't have, my life was very different, I would have to say, because I kept looking at miracles. And then 23 years ago, I had I had become a chiropractor, and I had gone out to Hawaii to see if that's where I wanted to put a clinic that had something to do with dolphin healing and dolphin sounds.
Ocean.
So I had gone out there. I was, at this point in time, I was, a friend of mine and I had kayaked out to a little island called the Mokalua, about a mile out, which would be about 2 kilometers out, and we were cliff climbing. By this time, we'd been cliff climbing for an hour or so, and we were on the ocean side, about 160 feet up, and we were at kind of a stopping place because it was just total sheer wet cliff from there, because the waves were coming in from 2 different directions and hitting the side of that cliff and coming all the way up the full 160 feet and sort of raining down on us in a waterfall. And we tried to navigate a tide pool, a wet tide pool that was getting water from the waves it hit. And the tide started coming in, a huge set of waves hit together and literally sucked me off the side of the cliff. And I drowned in deep water ocean. They told me later that I was pulled into a blowhole, which most people don't survive. They don't even get back body parts from that usually. A blowhole is where, from the volcanic action, it's a tubule that was made by the volcano, and the water comes up through that very fast and then pulls down anything that's in its way. So they had people that had that kind of accident. It was shark water below, and they said normally they didn't even get clothes back. They didn't get body parts or even clothes back from people that had coral and lava rock. So what actually happened to me was I was pulled into a place that I couldn't breathe, and I had practiced all my life. You know, I was a competitive swimmer, and so I really knew how to hold my breath in water. But there came a time when I just had to breathe in the water and just become part of the ocean. And then I found myself in a place that was a light, bright aqua green. It wasn't water. It wasn't liquid at all. It wasn't air. It was liqueur. And it was wonderful. I could have been in that space for 1,000,000 years. There was no time. And then all of a sudden, I found myself just into an amazing, bright, white light. It was not totally homogeneous. It was almost like bright clouds or cloudy, hazy but bright and beautiful and wonderful. I didn't notice that I had a body at all, but I definitely had feelings, and the feeling was that of complete support and love and ecstasy. It was such a heightened feeling. It was sort of like when you're a child and your mom or your dad pushes you in a swing, and you just you go up to the top of that swing and you feel this elation. It's like everything is perfect. And it would be like that feeling forever, just love and warmth and coziness and support and everything positive and lovely, and a place that you would want to be forever and ever. And at some point in time, I thought I heard my friend call my name. And it was like warp speed from Star Trek. I was on my way back. Everything was like a giant swirl. And I knew I was on my way back because I felt my heart start. It was like bam, and my heart hit my rib cage. I wasn't, there was no breath yet, but my heart had restarted, and there was a sense of light. And on the other side, my friend said he had searched for my body for about half an hour. I wasn't in the tide pool. I wasn't on the rocks below. I wasn't anywhere. And he had already gone through a number of stages. First, you know, it was God. I get it. She's with you. You know. Then he went through the thoughts of he was going to have to call the police, and they were going to get him for murder because my son had already had words with him about not leading his mom astray.
Oh, no.
So he thought, oh, my gosh. And then he said he went to the point of deciding he was just going to have a sea rescue of my body and live with the consequences. And it was at that point he turned around and he started back on the cliff. By the way, we didn't have any kind of ropes or anything. We were just cliff climbing, hands and toes.
Right.
And
it's very brave.
In our bathing suits, not the smartest thing we probably ever did.
Yeah.
And he had already started back around the cliffside, and before he disappeared from that area, he said it felt like something grabbed him by both his shoulders and turned him around. He felt compelled to call my name one last time, and just like that, boom, my body popped up in the tide pool. And
wow.
He said, as he looked, he said, I was very dead, very dead, no mistake about it. And so he made his way back to the tide pool because I was floating in the tide pool, and he was up on the top. The tide pool was about 4 feet deep. It was a very large one, and he reached down with both his hands. He grabbed mine, and he pulled, and my chest caught on the lava rock. It was like a Heimlich maneuver, and I breathed in air, and I was back.
Wow.
And it was about, then of course, all the part where repercussions and everything, where I was, you know, getting me back to shore, to the hospital, them telling me I was a classic drowning, and real miracles started happening. Things like
you being sent to me.
Oh, well, yes, but I mean,
I love it.
That happened for a whole month. I had to stay out in Hawaii for another month because I couldn't travel because I had too much body damage. And so a month later, I was back home, got photographs that I had taken, and we had a very interesting photograph of a being that I didn't take. It was, the picture had been taken while I had been drowned underwater. Wow. and that picture had really frightened me.
Yeah.
And of course, I had sent it back to my friends in Hawaii, and they said it was Pele's sister who saves people from drowning, and they have a whole tradition and stories that have come down through the centuries about people being saved from accidents like the one I was in and brought back to life. So anyway, when I got that photograph, it frightened me because I thought there was a smirk on this angel's face. And so I called up my best friend the first day that I had the photograph in my hands. That was way back when you had to, have them developed.
Exactly.
And so I called up my friend and I said, I need, you remember those meetings we've talked about, people that have died and come back, because she was going through her own MS and dying slowly. And I said, remember those meetings we've talked about? I said, well, I need a counselor. I need one really badly. I need one right now. And she said, oh, you need to meet my friend Edward. So I called Edward up on the phone, and it wasn't one of those phone calls where you say, hi, when can we meet? Where? No, he had me on the phone for about an hour. And in that hour, we found out we had been crossing paths since we were children.
Oh, wow.
We even had the same friends. We just had never, we even volunteered at a Jerry Jampolsky Center for Attitudinal Healing, but we had never met because he was counseling a young boys group and I was counseling adults.
Wow.
And so we had never met. He asked me on the phone to come over to his house, bring my picture, let's talk about our experiences. And we've been together ever since. We have not parted. And that was 23 years ago.
I'm not surprised after everything you've been through. What an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think what we need to do is actually get you back again and have you. We could talk for ages, couldn't we? We could have you back again and fill in all the dots, because I've got a lot of questions around your experiences. They're both very unique. So you both had an automobile accident. You both had a drowning incident.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's blowing my mind, this whole conversation. So what has it been like as a couple who, like you say, you've been together ever since, who have both had this kind of experience?
It is a shared transcendental experience to find someone who questions one's sanity. And you've mentioned, we've seen in this association of other people who've had near-death experiences, usually those marriages or partnerships break up because one person is so transformed and
the other one doesn't understand.
Mm.
I'll give you a beautiful example of a young girl who came to one of our INs, near-death studies group meetings, because her dad was a featured speaker. And then after he'd given a story and we were finishing up, and I turned to his daughter and I said, do you have anything to share?
And how old was she?
She was probably 12 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
She was 11.
Okay. 11. And so she says, well, when I was growing up, I was Daddy's favorite girl.
Mm.
After he had that, when he died and came back, now everybody's his favorite girl.
Yeah. Hard for her to understand.
The love we come back with is transformational and universal, and we begin to really let go of a narrow perspective of reality and start to explore the various dimensions of it.
Mm.
I want to acknowledge one thing Cheryl has used in describing that experience of being in the light, being at one, is a euphoric ecstasy.
Yes.
A plateau orgasm, if you would.
Yeah.
Reach that point of, bliss. Never let it go away. Here's where I always want to stay. And too many of the near-death experiences come back, and it takes a struggle for us to say, why am I here?
Yeah, definitely.
And many of them still have good memories, but a lot of the other folks come back say, I'm still searching for what that meaning is.
Yeah, why was I sent back?
I relate to this as well.
We weren't given a choice, that we're just sent back.
Yeah. And Cheryl, you said that you felt a very strong sense of purpose. I so connected to this, and how you didn't quite know what it was, so you gave your everything to everything.
Yes.
Edward, did you have anything like that? Did you come back with a feeling of, this is what I'm meant to do with my life?
Not after the first experience. I came back, after the doctors had sewn me back together, and I sat down to speak to the doctor and explained that I had this somewhat mystical experience. And he said, drugs, hallucination, trauma, I wouldn't speak of it.
Yes.
So I went to my minister, and I talked to my minister, who said, it sounds like the work of the devil. I wouldn't mention it if I were you.
Yeah.
That was the 1960s when we both had our auto accidents. And it was not popular to have that experience if you were, if you went to church. You couldn't tell your minister or your priest. It wasn't popular among MDs to tell them. And it certainly wasn't popular among your family. So
I'd like to give a shout out, an acknowledgement to the gift that is that organization called IANDS.
Definitely.
Association of Near-Death Studies, of which I understand you're a leader here in New Zealand.
Yes, that's correct. We're quite a new group here in New Zealand, but what an amazing association.
And I encourage any of your listeners who would like to have a deeper understanding to not only visit their website, but become a member. And you meet some of the most marvelous, delightful, and encouraging eccentrics and leaders.
Yeah.
He hasn't gotten a chance to really talk about his second and his third experience, which really helped mold his life. And they all happened within about a 5-year period from that accident. And as he was having surgeries and hospitalizations while they were trying to put him back together. You don't stay dead that long without having some repercussions body-wise.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it can be so easy for us to focus in on the spiritual side or the experience itself. And I know for me, when I had my experience, it was my physical, the state that my body was in, almost a physical trauma that really just taught me so much. And that was my focus for so long, because that was what I had to deal with. So I totally understand what you're saying there. I would love to pick up this conversation again. Thank you so much for sharing. I know we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. So thank you, both Edward Salisbury and Cheryl Mackin. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You might put there also, they've known me in the community now as Brother Ed.
Brother Ed. Oh, I love it. All right, Brother Ed Salisbury. Thank you. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast show. If you've enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, tell people about it. I'd love to get these messages out there. Don't forget you can also pick up your VIP access pass for additional content at patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. You can connect with us via the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page, and I look forward to catching you for another episode soon.